Okay, this is like my third time trying to film this. But hello, you guys. I am so excited to chat with you. Welcome back to the Curated Collective Co podcast. It was my third time filming because we are selling one of our cabinets in her home on Facebook Marketplace, and she came right when I started filming, which was totally fine. But then when I attempted to carry it down the stairs, I was like, what was I thinking? I should definitely have waited until my fiance was home, and also a little sketched out selling things when I am home alone. So anyway, it worked out. We were able to carry it down, and that's why it's taken me a few times to record. I feel good about this take that we're going to do. So hello, welcome back. I realized that I haven't filmed a new podcast episode since I think beginning the new year, or maybe even like right at the end of 2024, which is crazy. I had all of my podcast episode ideas listed out, but time flew by. I ended up getting some really huge projects at the start of January, and all my my focus went to that and my Patreon, and I really just kind of fell off of the podcast. So I'm sad about that because I love talking to you guys, and I love also having some guests on and connecting with more creatives. So I'm excited to come back to the podcast. I'm also thinking about possibly only having my podcast episodes on Spotify because I would like for you guys to go over there and support my Spotify channel. And also I want to keep my YouTube to those YouTube produced videos. So I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air with the podcast, and I think that's also part of the reason I haven't made new podcast episodes, because I want to feel really good about where I'm at with it. So that's why I've been a little slow. But I want to jump into the questions and answers because I have quite a few of them. Okay, I answered this one a little bit on my Instagram, but I want to kick off by answering it. And it is the question, how do you schedule breaks day to day so you're not always working on the computer? So that's a very good question, and it's honestly a struggle still to this day. I think it always will be. I kind of had a realization during the winter, during the holidays, when I was like, I just want 2 weeks of nothing. But in reality, and this is like the harsh truth about entrepreneurship and running a business, is you're never really going to get that. And I think that's why entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I think that's why sometimes it can fail. I do think there's a way to have like a really good balance with it, but to have a full 2 weeks or even a full month of just like no work at all is really difficult to do. And I have definitely set myself up to have like automated systems in my business and a really set schedule so that I'm able to do that in a way, but I'm always going to be thinking about my business. Even if I have a day off or a week off, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still posting, I'm still showing up. So it's technically not a break. And I had that realization where I was like, this is the path I chose and I love it. So I kind of just got to suck it up and put my big girl pants on and just do it. And I feel like as long as I have some like days or weekends where I can just like check out a little, that's really the reset I need. But when it comes to like day-to-day work, I definitely have to step away from my computer, not just because I need like a break, but because of my eyeballs. Like I will start to go cross-eyed if I look at the computer all day long. So what I like to do is I like to start my mornings with like me time. So I like to go to the gym. I like to go on a walk if I'm not going to the gym. I like to play with Leo. I like to just do something that's not computer related so I can just really kind of set myself up for my day. And then when I jump into my computer work, I typically will do that, but after like 4 to 5 hours, I will step away and go on like a 10-minute walk. So if I am looking at the computer for like 4 to 5 hours, I usually will try to step away and go on at least a 10-minute walk, or even lately I've been doing this thing where I just put my yoga block in the middle of our office and I just either do a bridge or I just lay there and close my eyes, and it's just like the best midday break that I need, and it just like resets me to get back into my work. And I do think it's important as designers that we step away for a minute to like just reset a little. And sometimes when we're looking at a design too long, it can start to look the same. So I feel like when I do go on a walk or go grab a coffee at a coffee shop or lay on the ground, I'm able to just come back to it and really see it in a new perspective. So that's what I like to do. But I do think that it's kind of just the path we go down as entrepreneurs, that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, especially in the beginning when you're really getting your business off the ground, you're probably going to be looking at the computer more than the average person. And it's as long as you have like a day or two in between to really reset that is what's really important, and that's how I do it. So I hope that helps. Another thing that's been helping me with the breaks is on Fridays. I usually do that as a half day. So it's kind of just happened that way. I've noticed that like Thursdays are the days where I'm like burnt out from the week. So either Thursdays or Fridays, I will usually take a half day. And what I mean by that is I will either go to a workout class, or I'll just like be done with my work and go like cook a nice meal or go on a walk, play with Leo. All those things are what really help me just step away from the computer. And I just kind of like, I'm intuitive with it. Like if a Thursday I'm feeling a little bit burnt out, I listen to myself and I step away, because if I keep pushing through that, I don't want to eventually like dread my work. So I really try to be intuitive with it and set up my schedule so I have time to take those breaks. So that's typically how I handle that. Okay, I got so many questions on where to put effort in to get clients, what platform, if Instagram's still a good place to find clients. So many questions on where to find clients. And I want to do a full updated video on YouTube where I talk about how to get clients in 2025, because every year is a little bit different. However, I feel that the most important thing, if I were sitting in front of like a new designer or even myself 4 to 5 years ago, I would say that you just have to keep putting yourself out there, whether that's on Instagram or on YouTube or even in community events. Consistently put yourself out there. You can't just do it once and walk away and think something's going to happen. You have to do it over and over and over again. And the only way to do that consistently, I believe, is to not judge yourself along the way. I see so many new designers judging their work or consuming too much content where they just feel like their work's not good enough, or they just will never reach that point. But you have to go into it believing that you're really good and believing you can do it, believing you can get to that next level in order for you to actually do that. So I believe that at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters which platform you choose. I do feel it matters like where your target audience is living, if you're really going to niche down to find like where they're consuming the most content and pour yourself into that. But I didn't know any of that in the beginning. And when I really stepped back about like if I were to give advice on this, I did not know that I wanted to work with wellness professionals. I didn't even really know where they were consuming content. What I did was I just went full throttle on like all of the platforms. I specifically really dove into YouTube, and then I started to build my Instagram, and then I also started to build my TikTok. And TikTok, I feel I kind of stepped back from, especially with like graphic design content, because I felt like the audience on there was a lot more negative, and I just had to be kind of mentally ready for that. And also the uncertainty of if it was going to stick around worried me. So I slowed down on that, but I was getting so many clients from TikTok and also YouTube and Instagram. So it's really hard for me to say like one specific platform. That's why I say like just be consistent on one. Like pick one that you really enjoy as a user and stick with it, because I truly believe that anyone that you want to work with is probably on any platform, and I think Instagram specifically a lot of people are on. So I know that's kind of a convoluted answer to that question, but I really do feel like it doesn't truly matter the platform. I feel like as long as you're consistent on one, you're gonna eventually get seen by people who want your work or want to work with you, and you just have to stay consistent. I know that's like the lamest answer, but you have to stay consistent. Don't judge yourself. Keep putting yourself out there. And don't even give up after a month. Keep going for at least 6 months, and you'll see big changes, and you'll start to see some amazing things and opportunities happening to you. But I know a lot of you probably want a direct answer on like where to get clients. So I want to share with you guys where a lot of my community members in the Patreon, which you guys should go join that. I always have a link down below, and you can join for as low as $19. But if you want to connect with all of us on Discord and really get like real-time conversations, then definitely join as a circle member, because we talk on there all the time about like where to find clients and how that's all going for everyone. And I have quite a few people in there that are landing clients from Reddit, which is amazing. So I really, like I said, I don't think it matters which platform as long as you're in there engaging and consistent. But I've heard about Reddit, I've heard about Instagram, and also referrals, definitely referrals. So I feel like there's so many places to land clients, and I don't think there's like this magical platform that's going to just have them come running to your website. You really have to stay consistent and just put yourself out there. And I want to give you guys some real things to stick to though. So if I were talking to you as a new designer, I would say at least post, if you're on YouTube, I would say at least post like twice a week in the beginning. But if you're on like Instagram, I would say try to post at least 4 times a week, if not 5 times a week. But do what works best for you and that you can stick with, because consistency is truly key. Okay, another question. This really ties into what I just answered, but how did I start finding clients? And this specific person said that they've worked with family and friends, but 4 of them have canceled. And I want to talk about like working with family and friends as well, because I do think it can be tricky. I think there's this weird thing when you work with like family and friends that they just don't fully respect the process because they know you on a different level. But I feel like if you treat them as just another client and not like not cutting corners, or if you don't have the process with your family and friends, I do think there is potential for issues happening. So what I mean by that is like, and I actually am guilty of this, I've definitely done that when I work with like a family friend, is I will just give them a really good deal because I don't want them to like be completely flabbergasted at my pricing. So I usually give them a really good deal, and then I regret it later because they're probably more comfortable to tell you what they don't like and what they do like, and also ask for more revisions. So you really shouldn't give discounts unless you really feel like comfortable doing that and you also have a set process with them. I don't typically make my family and friends like sign a contract. I know I preach that all the time, sign a contract, but I do feel that's important to do. But I also feel that I do trust the people I'm working with, and I don't believe they're going to go run off and not pay me. I haven't had that happen, luckily, with a family friend. But I do feel that you just have to be really careful and set your process really clear in the beginning, and just like let them know like, hey, like I'm so excited to help you out, but I just have like a process that seems to work for like all my clients, and I'd love to do it with you too, just so we can all stay on the same page, and like it'll help me practice and learn too. If you like go to your family and friends saying that and sticking to that process, I think it will really help for like your own mental health, and also to have like a successful project from start to end. So that's what I would say about that. But when I started graphic design, most of my clients were from either referrals, or I also had some family friends that I worked with in the beginning. I'm like thinking about it as I'm talking, but I do remember getting quite a few referrals when I started to share more about doing design on like Facebook and Instagram. When I was in college, I would like share that. And I remember a few friends, they got jobs out of college and they remembered that I was sharing that I did design. So they ended up at their new job needing a designer and reached out to me. So that's just like the beauty of putting yourself out there and not knowing like who it's going to connect you with. So that was one way I started to get clients. I also did start to get clients from Upwork. That's where I really started to kind of pour into that and apply. I applied to like 10 jobs a day. I think it was crazy, maybe even more. I know they like cut you off at a limit, but it's gotten so saturated on there, and I know it's a lot harder to get a job on there. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people on there that don't respect paying high enough, or also just kind of don't respect the process that you might have. I feel like it's kind of this weird, like, you don't get to really form a really great client designer relationship with an Upwork client because they just are moving so fast with the design. I don't think they're really expecting that. So it's a little bit tricky, and I don't think I'd recommend it now anymore. But I do think you can potentially have success on those freelance platforms. I've never tried Fiverr. I really had success on Upwork, and I just stuck with that in the beginning. But that was like 5 or 6 years ago, guys. So I know things have changed. But that was where I got some clients and built my portfolio. And then Instagram and YouTube was the catalyst of me just building a clientele. So that's kind of how it played out for me. Okay, this person asked, web designer but not graphic designer, what's your opinion? So I think that graphic designer is such an umbrella term for like so many directions you can go with it. You could be a package designer, you could be a specific logo designer, you could be I'm trying to think of other designer types. You could be just a specific like brand identity designer or brand strategy. There's so many like things, like terms within the graphic design word. So if I were to compare like graphic designer and web designer, I would say that like you just have to pick which direction you want to go down. I know that a lot of brand designers go down the web design path too, because I think a lot of that's due to like seeing a client take their branding and not using it properly on a website, and it just frustrates us as designers, and we're like, you know what, I can help you with that too. I also think that it's a great platform to go down because web design has a lot of financial growth in it. Like you can really charge a lot more for websites because there's a lot more to it, and it takes time, and it's definitely a bigger process. So I think that's why a lot of graphic designers go down that route as well. But I mean, my opinion on the two are that you have to be really careful with becoming a web designer. I've seen so many brand designers and graphic designers become a web designer, but there's a difference between a web designer and a web developer and all the things that come with a website. There's so much more to it than just the design. And I do get a little frustrated when I see a web designer creating a website but not knowing how a website technically functions on the back end. And I don't consider myself like an amazing coder or developer, but I've definitely taken the time to learn how websites work, what makes a website good, what makes a website perform well and function, and all of that. And I think it's really important to know that. So I feel like if you're more drawn to the arts, then I would possibly even stick to just being the designer of the website and handing it off to a developer. But I do think it's important, no matter what, to learn a lot more about websites besides just how it looks. Like you want to know the user experience, how everything's going to function well, the back end of the SEO, all of that. I think it's really important to know. And I do think that sometimes people tend to forget about all that. So I do think it's important, but I think it's great if you want to expand your offerings and learn something new. I'm all for that, but I think it's just important to learn all the things that come with it so you know how to educate your clients, especially if they're paying you large amounts of money. Okay, this next question is, any advice? Working full-time, hating my job at the moment, pays awful, people are annoying, but it's flexible and hard to leave. Okay, I totally resonate with this because when I was working that job before I took my business full-time, I was pretty miserable. Like I think back to those days, I dreaded my day. I dreaded talking to anyone on the phone. I was not very happy. And it wasn't even really like, I felt guilty for feeling that unhappy because it was so flexible. I was able to work from home. I really didn't have that much tasks on my plate, and I had a lot of freedom with it. But I also was getting paid really badly. Like, I know I'm going to say really badly. I want to share with you guys the actual number. I feel like for some people, this is a really great starting point, but I'm talking about this was like 4 to 5 years into me and my career. And I was like 28, and I felt like I deserved a lot more income. I was making around 40 grand when I started and like 45 when I left. And I was there for 3 years. So I did get a little bit of a raise, but it just wasn't cutting it. Like, life is expensive and it wasn't really enough. So that was adding on to my stress of just like, I'm not happy here. I know I could be making more, doing my own thing, or even working somewhere else. And I definitely felt that way for like a few years. But if I could give you any advice, it would be to take advantage of your situation right now. It sounds like it's flexible and that you are making like a consistent income. So what I would do is make an exit plan. But even if that exit plan is in a year, I know that sounds like a long time, but you can put in so much work to make that exit plan so successful. And what I mean by that is like, take the time you have outside of work to build up your clientele. And it's going to be a really busy season of like balancing the two. But if it's a flexible job and you're able to do that, I would take full advantage of that, where you don't have to rely on an income from your clientele and you're able to just grow it and in such a natural way without it being so forced. And then when you're ready to leave, you have something ready for you. So I am so glad that I did that. I didn't even intentionally mean to do that, but I was so scared to leave my job because I didn't know what I was going to be making every month as a designer. And I had an idea of it, but we do live in a lot of uncertainty as entrepreneurs. So I was really terrified of that. And I didn't know what to do. So I waited in my job for a while before that move to quit, because I wanted to have a lot of savings to like have a backup. And also I wanted to have more consistent clients and a good idea of what my day to day would look like. So I would script out your ideal day. I would start to find some clients that you can have consistently. I would save up a bunch of money, even like 3 to 4 months of living of money saved. That way you're not feeling stressed when you leave your job. And yeah, that's my recommendation for it and my advice for it. But I wish you the best. And I know it can be really hard, especially when you're not super happy at the moment. Okay, this one is advice to a grad student trying to start her own business. Okay, that's amazing. And I think that's so cool when you're already like a student or you're graduating and you're already thinking about that. You're so ahead of the game, and that's amazing. I would say to start just like putting your work out there. I know I just mentioned that earlier, but the sooner you put your work out there and build your portfolio and grow that, the more likely you are to get seen by amazing, amazing clients and opportunities. So if I were you, I would take advantage of social media. I would take advantage of having a portfolio website and building that up, and just be consistent with that. Post on there, constantly practice and learn and grow your expertise, and just share your work. I wish I could just, you know what, maybe I'll do one of those posts where they have the cardboard signs that just like reads a big statement, because I would put share your work and don't be afraid to do that, because I shared work that wasn't even, like, looking back now, that work probably not very good, but I shared it anyway and I grew along the way. And that is my biggest advice for anyone starting out. Also, besides that, I would just make sure that you know like how to run a business on the inside. So like business bank accounts and like how to set that up, and also how to manage a business, how to manage clients, and how to manage your projects on the back end. Like that you can learn over time, but I think it does help to have some idea of how you're going to manage everything once you start. And I say that because once you start, you'll realize that there's some really busy seasons and it's really hard to keep up with the project management side when you're serving so many clients. So try to kind of brainstorm that and learn along the way. But that's my best advice, and I am so excited for you. Okay, this person asked, where should I start as a beginner designer as far as all the resources that I provide? So I really want to work on like a great beginner graphic designer course that's been on my list for a while. And it's crazy because I have been designing for over 8 years now, going on 9, and I still feel like I'm learning every day. So it's hard for me to like step back and think about the very like beginner things to learn. But what I would recommend is to join my Patreon, because I do have a collection in there of like a blueprint of like where to start as a designer. So I talk about like a 12-month plan to becoming a full-time designer. I also talk about my strategy with how I manage everything. I talk about that. And I also share just like tips and tricks on how I design. So that's where I would start, because I share beginner stuff as well as more experienced stuff, and you can really get a feel for it all. So I would say that. But if you want more of like a one-time course, I do have a logo design simplified course that dives into like the design of logos and like the terminology, and I do touch on some beginner things there. So I'd recommend that. But I would also just say that if you're starting out, try not to get overwhelmed by the amount of courses out there. I also see people who take course after course after course, and then it's like you're so stagnant with starting because you learn so much that it's overwhelming. So I would try to stick with just like 2 courses and really take that in and start to practice on your own, because I think there's times where you can take too many courses and it's just too much. So that's my recommendation for that. But if you want like ongoing support, my Patreon is definitely the best place to be. Okay guys, we have a few more. And one of the next questions is, what advice would you give to those looking to start their own freelancing business? I feel like I kind of touched on this in those other ones, to just put your work out there. Only pick like 2, max 3 courses to really dive into like what areas of design you want to get into. But I mean, you could take more courses over time, but I think you really need to apply what you learned right away and practice and put that into like real life situations and build your portfolio. I also think it's important to join a community. That's why I started my Patreon, because you're able to learn so much. Like, I'm not even just saying that because it's my community, but I've even learned so much from these amazing creatives, and just being a part of a community where you can like really have those real-time conversations and see where people are landing their clients and see how people are handling situations it's so valuable, like so valuable. So I would say that's a really big thing. I also would say that I just think you have to not judge yourself. I know I mentioned this before, but don't judge yourself. Believe you can do it and just keep on going, and don't get too much imposter syndrome by consuming too much online. I recently deleted my Instagram app on my phone and I just access it from my desktop because I don't want to get so distracted by comparison, and I think that's another really big thing. So that's what I would say. The next question is it worth studying graphic design, or can I self-study and just start? I didn't really study graphic design in college. I learned little bits here and there because I did minor in photography and I learned how to use Photoshop, and from that I really got to see like how designers do it. But I don't think it's necessary to go to college for it. There's so much education online. If you are planning to go to college, do it for the experience. Do it to grow as a person, and also you will learn a lot. But I do feel like if you are hesitant on college because of the financials of it, then I would say just dive into learning online and put that learning into action. But I don't think it's necessary. I really don't. And I've thought about this a lot because I get this question a lot, and I really don't think it's necessary. Like I said, I didn't even really learn it in college, and I just feel like college is great. Trust me, like I am so glad I went because I learned how to like live on my own. I met so many new friends. It taught me so much about communication and also putting yourself out there. And I think without it, I wouldn't be as far as I am just because of like what I learned as an individual. But if it's specifically for design, don't think it's necessary. Okay, next question, and this is actually kind of the last one, is how do you navigate when a client wants a site but doesn't know all the content they need? Do you say come back when you're ready, or how do you nip scope creep in the butt? Okay, so really good question. And if a client does not know what they need, first off, I am starting to make it a requirement for my clients to have their content before we start, because I like to design the website off of the content and it just works better for me. But if they don't have their content yet, occasionally I will design the website, and that kind of helps them know the content they need. So I know that's kind of like two different ways you can go about it, but if there's a project I really want to work on, they don't have their content, they want to work with my copywriter, but my copywriter might not be available until after my availability. So sometimes I'll design the website and put placeholder content, and then my copywriter will come in and write it all. But I definitely feel like it's important to have at least some idea of what to provide on a website. And I usually highly recommend that they use my copywriter. I think a lot of clients are starting to get comfortable with ChatGPT, which is fine. And I think it can sometimes work, but I just feel like having that human touch on writing and really getting to know the client's story and how to tell that is so important. And that's why I really try to sell that to my clients and like encourage them to do that. So I don't turn them away always. I mean, if I don't really want the project, or if I feel like it's not a good fit and they don't have content, I usually will say like, let's let me think about it, or we can talk about it when you're more ready. But usually what happens is I will be like, okay, well, I'm happy to like help you figure out what content's needed. I'll either send them my content workbook, or I'll have them get on a call with my copywriter. So that's typically how I handle it. And it's very rare that I turn a project away now, because a lot of my inquiries are so exciting and I do want to work with them, but I do see how that can happen. And yeah, based on my experience, if you don't have content or even photography for the website, it is a little bit more tough to build it and make it feel really like their brand. But it's possible. So if you really want the project, I would just find a way to like work around that and educate them on what they need for the website. Okay, those are all the questions I wanted to answer with you guys today. I hope that was helpful. If I didn't get to a question that you have, or if you want to drop them down below, please feel free to do so. I'm always checking my comments. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was so nice to be back and talking with you all. But if you did like it, please make sure to go and follow my podcast on Spotify, because like I said, I might only be posting there in the future, but I will definitely notify you guys. But definitely be sure to follow that just in case. And also check out my Patreon if you do want to join a community. I think you guys are really going to love it. But hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And I will talk to you in the next one.